Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on? I'm going back.
Welcome back, everybody. Bacon and Egg Show, January 9th, 2021. Show number 36. Pretty uneventful week in news and sports. Not a lot going on again. So, well, Jay, what's going on, man?
A lot, man. Trying to sort of decipher all the things that happened this week, try to process everything, and um, looking forward to some NFL games this weekend to sort of get the mind off of all that. And we've got some Longhorn basketball to talk, some exciting stuff there, good stuff to see out of that program. A little bit of news from the Texas football side of things, just a little bit of news, not a ton of confirmed signings, but things that are pretty sure that are coming down the pike, and a little bit of some random stuff to talk about today, man. Let's hop into it. What do we got?
Yeah, well, before, don't want to leave people hanging here throughout the show. Jay and I did coordinate our attire today. We made sure to have this all lined up to where we both had our Austin FC shirts on. So anybody that was curious and was wondering, yeah.
When I turned the camera on, and it was like I told you, I said, man, I just had a feeling you were wearing the kit today. And sure enough, turned it on, and there's, well, I got the flag up today, man. So I wanted to sort of
hell yeah.
Wanted to sort of add to that, and add to the ambiance, if you will. Got the dream up here today too, the GOAT.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know we talked about, we haven't quite got into NBA stuff quite yet, but yeah, we'll still save that. We'll wait for the James Harden saga to kind of pick up steam, and we'll save that for another day. But yeah, man, let's jump into it. Let's start off with Longhorn football. Kind of pick up where we left off last week on this coaching change and everything that's gone on. As everybody that follows is pretty well aware, the national championship game is still to be played, as it's currently scheduled on Monday. So Steve Sarkisian is still fulfilling his duties as offensive coordinator with Alabama. So the speed at which a staff is being put together it's coming along, but it's not quite there. Jay, what have you got on the few that kind of have been confirmed? I know the university hasn't quite released the welcome to Texas coach such and such graphics and news releases. I'd imagine they're going to do that when the whole staff is put together. But the names that have been essentially confirmed, what do you got on them? What do you think? And yeah,
we've got a familiar name in the fold there, a name that a lot of Longhorn fans will recognize in Blake Gideon, who played safety here in the 2000s and played some really good ball, is sort of known for the infamous interception drop in the Tech game, that the Crabtree game. Anyways, we're not going to go down that hole, Kerry. But anyways, the guy was a good player. I see you're still shaking your head. The guy, he was a good player, but by all accounts, he's becoming an even better coach. He comes very highly regarded by Will Muschamp, who, in our conversation last week, was somebody that was really high on our list in terms of who we expected to maybe even become the defensive coordinator here at the University of Texas. It's not looking as certain as when we record today, and it's actually looking more like he won't be the guy. But one thing that he has contributed to this coaching hiring process was his recommendation of Blake Gideon. So to me, it just seems like he's one of those guys that unsung heroes sort of that you got to have on a coaching staff. Those position coaches matter, and we saw that during Mac's tenure, Kerry, when you see the DBs coaches, when you got Dwayne Akina here and your entire secondary is all developing like that. It's a good, and he's going to come in and do special teams by all accounts. He's not necessarily going to come in and coach safeties necessarily, but to know you have a guy coming in that's familiar with the program, that has spent time on campus, obviously, to bring that sort of blood back into the campus. That's something that I'm excited about.
Yeah, yeah. The dropped interception thing aside, and I can't believe I'm even going to mention this, but like the maybe more infamous, maybe not infamous, but a kind of forgotten play was what he did in the national championship against Alabama. On a 4th down fake punt, he caught the interception instead of just letting it hit the ground, which then ended up being the drive where Colt McCoy's shoulder. But maybe those extra, however many yards, if he doesn't catch it, maybe history's a little bit different. But we're not going to go down that road today.
No.
This is a positive sports experience today. We're not going to discuss that.
PSE, yes, let's do it.
No, so on Blake Gideon, you can always kind of tell like the reaction or kind of the perception of a coach when he leaves somewhere. And he was most recently with Ole Miss on Lane Kiffin's staff, and the reaction to him leaving Ole Miss was pretty significant. Like from what I was seeing, Ole Miss fans are pretty disappointed in him leaving. I guess the change in their special teams from him coming onto campus and then, kind of now where he's leaving it is pretty significant. I mean, I think, and as we've seen over the last decade, special teams matter. You go from, we were so used to, with Mac Brown, special teams just being not an afterthought, but you always could rely on it. Always had good kicking game. Punt game was good.
Blocked more kicks towards, in those really, really hot years, blocked a lot of kicks. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody talks about Beamer ball and what Virginia Tech was doing, but Texas was right up there in terms of block kicks, all those things. Then you see Charlie Strong come in and the special teams just absolutely crater, blocked extra points. Was it four missed extra points in one game? That was a not positive sports experience.
Nope.
And then you see it get a little bit better under Tom Herman, but then even this past season with the coaching staff changes, you see Dicker missing field goals. You see, you can tell like these things really, really actually matter. It's not just a like kind of token coaching position that like, oh, here you go, special teams coach. So I think he's going to be a plus coach on this staff.
Sure.
I mean, we know that his time at Texas, he spent 4 years as a coach on the field, so he has that experience, with him there.
Yeah, definitely. Coach on the field, first in the locker room, last to leave, sort of guy.
Brought his lunch pail, hard hat kind of player.
Yeah, exactly.
But on a like serious note about that though, he comes from his father's a high school football coach. He comes from that kind of coaching lineage, and he was a kind of low star recruit that started early on in his Texas tenure and played on some of this wasn't a like, these weren't bad defenses he was playing on. He was partnered with Earl Thomas.
Right.
Like this is a guy that was essentially a 4-year starter, and he gets, and it's just the way it goes. He gets associated with the Tech game and everything that came with that. But like, I think it's a good thing. I think it's exciting. And as you mentioned, it's always nice to bring a guy back on campus that knows the place, that's familiar, and can kind of navigate the ship a little bit, if you will. So, Jay, what other names have been basically confirmed with this coaching staff?
No, we lose Kerry.
No, I'm here. You here? Hello.
Experience. Hey, you back?
There we go. You froze up on me there.
Oh, you froze up on me there. I thought I lost you.
Well, we're here now. So,
so I think the last thing I caught was that you were you were talking about Gideon and the importance of people like with that Longhorn sort of in them coming back to campus.
Yeah. And so was wrapping up with him on that, and just what other names have been basically confirmed on this staff?
Oh yeah, so basically it's Bo Davis, who's now in the defensive line coach, the Detroit Lions, around campus, but in the pros as well. And I mean, he's a guy that when you hear somebody, you're getting a guy coming from the NFL, somebody that knows what it takes to make it at that level and how that can translate to a college campus where you have a lot of players that have shown promise in this role this year. The defensive tackles, especially, were guys that we were talking about all year as just being steady steady eddies on that defensive line, and with what I feel like the type of defense that's going to be brought in here will be like a 3-3-5. I think there's going to be we will, there's going to be so much movement, so many different ways for these defensive linemen to have an impact. So having a guy that can come in and not only knows what it takes to make it at a higher level, but knows how to develop players to make it to that level. So the Bo Davis hire is something that I think Longhorn fans should look forward to seeing. I guess once he gets on campus.
Yeah, and he's a good recruiter too. I know he got in a little bit of trouble a few years ago, but
yeah,
maybe that's the kind of recruiter we need these days. So
who hasn't gotten into a little trouble a few years ago, Kerry? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
If you're not getting in trouble, you're not, you're not recruiting. So
but the thing is though, just on that point though, when we talk about Coach Sarkisian coming in, and it's like, okay, I'm not saying that he's going to come in and do things not the right way, but I think there is a certain way to go about recruiting. There is a certain way to go about getting the best players, and how it's a way of recruiting. It is a sort of you either have it or you don't. And Sarkisian has it. He's an elite recruiter. We've talked about this on the show already, and our Longhorn insider Mike Holland was his biggest, gold star on this hire, was just that Sark is just such an elite recruiter. So when you got guys, you got to get the guys on campus. So whether it's Sarkisian doing it, Bo Davis doing it, whoever it is that's going to be coming onto campus, Stan Drayton is obviously a fantastic recruiter. So you got, these coaches that you're bringing on, and you see they're the type of guys that bring in the Jimmies and the Joes to make your program successful.
Well, and these are good coaches too.
Yep.
Like this is, with some of the names that are being floated that aren't quite official yet, because of also the Alabama connection and stuff like that, like Kyle Flood on the offensive line. Like Alabama's had a pretty good offensive line. You want to bring the Bama offensive line to Texas with you to not only recruit but develop, I'd say that's a pretty good pickup. The potential, I guess it sounds like, just about done deal, I think, is AJ Milwee. He's an analyst right now that with Sark at Alabama, but it sounds like he's going to be the quarterback's coach. Young guy that's apparently being, like, coaches around the country are tabbing as kind of this Lincoln Riley-esque, like, quarterback whisperer. That'd be pretty good to have. Like, and another, like, you look at the quarterback development at Alabama, not bad. So there's still a long way to go with this staff. I think we're going to, I think by next week, assuming the national championship game gets played on time,
right,
I think it's going to come together really quickly after that. On the defensive side, we've heard some names being floated for defensive coordinator now that the Muschamp thing is kind of cooled. What are your thoughts on Dan Quinn? That's a name that is kind of sounding like is one of the two options that are out there right now that are most likely.
The thing about Sarkisian is, at this point, is he's not going to come in here and spare any expense to make sure that this is the best coaching staff possible. And when you hear a guy's name like Dan Quinn with NFL head coaching experience, and is the type of coach, it's just, that would be the kind of hire that it's like, these other hires are turning heads in football circles, like inner football circles. That's the type of hire that everybody across the country is like, oh, here we go. Like, I guess this is for real now. And we haven't had that. There's been names, we've seen these hires, these hot coordinators come through that actually end up going to be head coaches other places. So it's like they have the talent and the ability, and the head coaches that were here at the time probably didn't do them any justice. But the thing is a Dan Kerry, like,
it's the architect of the Legion of Boom. Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator with the Seahawks, took the Falcons to a Super Bowl and had a big lead and saw what happened there. But that was, but still, he's got Super Bowl rings. Again, it's one of those things where, like, well, how good of a recruiter is he? How good of a recruiter does he need to be?
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
If you're a defensive back, like if you're a safety recruit and Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator at Texas and sits down and says like, you should come play for me at Texas. Oh, why? Just put on tape of those Seahawks secondaries, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, those guys, and just be like, there you go. Legion of Boom. Oh, and here's my Super Bowl ring. And another Super Bowl, and I think 2 more Super Bowl appearances. I think he was still at the Seahawks and they made that second appearance against the Patriots. But yeah, what else do you want?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's the type of hire that, and it's a type of hire that we've said needs to happen at this time. There's no more of, again, there's no more learning on the job, whether it's at a coordinator position, whether it's whatever. The guys are going to come in here at these higher level coaching positions with experience. This isn't Sarkisian bringing in his buddies from, the first stop that he had. Well, although when you talk about how many Alabama coaches he's bringing over, it's the kind of buddies that you want him to bring. If you're Nick Saban, think about like, you bring in all these coaches and then they coach for you, and then when they leave, they take all your coaches with him, and then you have to restock your staff. Like, I'm not feeling sorry for Nick Saban, trust me, but it's but it's like, man, that happens to this guy all the time. But no, man.
but he's got an ecosystem in place to manage that. Like people talk about how many people he brings in as analysts. Like he's got Charlie Strong as an analyst. He's got all these like analysts that have head coaching experience, and that's kind of where Sarkisian came in as an analyst, worked his way into became the offensive coordinator based off that.
Yeah.
And you hit on something that made me think of this when we discussed this before about the kind of Sarkisian redemption story, but also some of the it seems like the coaches that he's wanting to bring in are not guys that are going to come in and treat this as a career achievement award.
Right.
Like the thing is with a Dan Quinn, you might have him for a year.
Right.
But the whole point is you're bringing in somebody that's looking to get another head coaching job, that's looking to like, I don't want to say like rebound, but like advance. And people talk about, well, we need more continuity. We need more stability. If Dan Quinn takes a head coaching job, if he's the defensive coordinator at Texas, that must mean that the defense at Texas played pretty well that season, right?
Right.
Promote somebody then. And Sark then has this system of assistants that basically are ambitious and trying to work their way up to bigger and better things. And if they are, that means the team is performing well. That means they're winning games. I don't have an issue with that.
Right. Like, exactly. But that's the sort of system that you want. We're not talking about, I know we're sort of jaded as Texas football fans at this point, because we've had the turning over of coaching staffs over the last decade plus is just really the last 15 years. It's just been a nonstop turnstile of coaches, whether it's coordinators or head coaches or whatever, that now at this point, Sarkisian is the type of hire that, in my mind, we need to start thinking about this guy, not necessarily judging him on the immediate, like you said, but what are these plans that he's making for the future? Because I think that he's already there. Like, again, he's not learning how to be a head coach right now. He knows how he wants to, but he doesn't have to come out and say, hey, I'm going to establish my culture. No, like we know he took over an 0-12 Washington team that was an awful, what was one of the worst it could have been the worst program in D1 that year.
Just
it might have been.
Yeah.
And he took that program and made it respectable in a very short turnaround. So, I mean, it's not, he doesn't have to talk about what he's establishing his culture. He's just going to do it. And by bringing in these coaches and by bringing in that support staff that he knows is dependable, and having that, what did you call it a little bit ago? Just
like
being
continuity
able to,
and
like what Saban has though, with the
ecosystem of
ecosystem, being able to create that ecosystem on campus is the type of thing that he's already doing, as opposed to Tom Herman and Charlie Strong, who are still trying to figure themselves out as head football coaches. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that we talked about so much, having a head coach that already knows who he is. And I know Sark had he's fought his demons. He'll tell you that. He'll be the first person to tell you that he's had to battle some things and fight through some things. And just like when somebody gets through a battle with an addiction like he did and able to come out of it on the other side. And if Nick Saban trusts you to call the offense, I feel like you trust that you've turned the corner and that you can, it's something that you're capable of handling. And I this is just more of exactly what you said. If even Dan Quinn is here for a year, well, that might give somebody time like Blake Gideon, if he's the type of coach that we think he is. If he's already on staff and he's under this Sarkeesian tree, it's the type of coach that you could see develop. Maybe not him right away, but you know what I'm saying. Though that's the type of thing that you want to create in your system, in your program.
Well, and I think that kind of, we talk about establishing culture. I mean, that kind of filters down to the players and recruitment too, right? Like where you look at Alabama, having that kind of coaching ecosystem has also led to them kind of having a similar player ecosystem. It's what a sell. Nick Saban can sell the idea of coming on as an analyst and working your way back into a coordinator position and eventually a head coach position. He can sit down with a recruit and say, this is who we are. At the end of this, you're going to go to the NFL. You're going to be a high draft pick. What was the line he had a couple years ago about like, oh, if we lose someone, we just shit another player out.
Yeah.
We get so many fives, like we can just shit another one out. And like, that's the kind of system that and I guess for a recruiting pitch, you sit down and say, well, is such and such going to be my coordinator or be my position coach for 4 years? No, probably not. But you're going to come in and you're going to do this and you're going to develop this way and you're going to continue through this cycle and you're going to go to the NFL. And regardless of who your position coach is, you're going to be taught the same principles, the same ideas, and the same philosophies, and you're going to go on.
Yep.
Like, and that's where, Texas has a long way to get there, but that's how you and we're comparing it to the biggest and best, most successful program we've seen over the last decade. And, it's easy to be like, oh, just do that. But
yeah, but that's the goal, right? Like Texas is definitely not Alabama right now. They're not close. No matter how badly Texas fans want to think that Texas is Alabama right now, they're not. So of course we want to strive to become that. We want to strive to become, because that is the model program. That's what all programs should be striving to do right now, is to be Alabama. Or, Clemson, okay. But when you look at Nick Saban, it's like that's the model. There's a reason why Nick Saban, why all these guys bounce around on every branch on the Nick Saban coaching tree and they land into all these jobs. It's not because it's not a successful. They're churning out players, they're churning out coaches, they're churning out championships. That's the program you want to aspire to be. So I don't think there's a problem with saying, hey, there's the Alabama program, go do it, because that's what needs to happen if you're going to be successful at the University of Texas as the football coach. You need to become Alabama.
Well, and it's a lot easier for somebody that's been in that system and been a protege to Nick Saban and was even discussed as being his, successor. It's a lot easier to implement that Alabama system from someone that's been in it, as opposed to like after Texas lost to Alabama in the Rose Bowl, Mac Brown wanted to be like Alabama, and just in the sense of like, well, we need to have a power running game.
Yeah.
Like that's a different, like, oh, well, we need to be more like that. So, like it's a different, I trust one more versus the other, give me the one that's been in the system for a few years and has absorbed all of it. But it's going to be fun where, like I said, next week, I think we'll have this staff might be complete by the next show. Because I think as soon as that game ends Monday, and I have a feeling, I think Alabama's going to win that game, but crazier things have happened, but they just look unstoppable. So I think after that, it's going to come together pretty quick. I wouldn't be surprised if midweek there's an entire coaching staff announced.
Yeah, it's going to be quick. I think by
Yep.
the next time we talk, we'll have a pretty good grip on this staff, and there may be one or two names to fill out, maybe like a receivers coach or something like that. But I think that this will fill out very quickly, and we'll effort to have Mike on to break some things down and discuss. Either way, it'll be a good discussion next week about the coaching staff.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, let's stick on some UT stuff here. Let's jump over to basketball.
Yeah,
Um, nothing monumental like the win over Kansas happened this week, but it's still a nice solid professional win against Iowa State.
yeah.
The Big 12 is tough, man. I know going into this game, Texas was like a 12.5 point favorite. I think on our text and stuff, we are kind of like, that's a pretty high
Yeah.
number. Iowa
We
State's
were
not.
we were all off that number. Yeah.
Yeah, Iowa State, their record isn't great, but they've played everybody tough. That's a team that over the years has established themselves as a pretty hard to play against and successful program. Um, anything you can take away from this game as Texas gets ready to play West Virginia this weekend?
Oh, I mean, it's the type of victory that you're going to have to fight hard in the Big 12 every week. This isn't this isn't some conference where you're going to have games off, that you're going to be able to just rest and not have to put out your best effort to win, especially on the road. So when you have a team like um, Iowa State that is going to put up a good fight, this Texas team showed up, took their best punch, and came away with a victory. Like you said, just a professional victory. You go in there, you take care of business. It doesn't have to be pretty all the time. The gamut that they're running right now through Big 12 play is the type of run that you want a team to go through to prepare themselves for an NCAA tournament run. If you're playing well in these close games, if you're playing well in situations where that could have easily been a letdown game for this program, and in the past it would have
Yeah,
been.
it was an
Do you
interesting
agree?
game in that regard. Like, because I think we had all talked about coming off the Kansas game, how are they going to respond?
Yep.
And what was it? Iowa State jumped out to like a 6-0 lead right out of the gate. They looked energetic. They looked ready to go. Texas looked energetic too. They just the shots weren't falling.
Right.
But that's all it could take for a team to just go, okay, well, this just isn't going to be our night. Texas then dominated and I think got up to as high as a 15-point lead in the second half of that game. And you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And then Iowa State doesn't go away. They keep chipping away. But the way that they closed it out, the way that Texas shut the door wasn't going to, was encouraging to me, because we've seen this. And that's the reason I had to bring that up, because you said this was the perfect opportunity for a letdown. This is the kind of game that we've seen Texas teams in the past few years let get out of hand, let it get out of their grasp. But they didn't. And that's, if you before the game you say Texas is going to beat Iowa State by 6, I think all of us take that. I think the fact that it was like, oh, it's a 12.5 point favorite, and it's kind of maybe cloudies it up a little bit, but like 6-point win over Iowa State, let's go. I'll take that.
Yeah, easily all day long. And it's just, that's the type of game that in the past few years, not only do they let it get out of their grasp, but they end up losing by 8 or 9 or 10 points.
Right.
Like it doesn't even end up being a close one, because it's almost like they forget they're lost. But now with the type of sort of cohesive play that this team has been showing, and they're just so loaded, man. There's so much experience. There's so much talent. There's so much length and athleticism. You got different guys showing up every single night and being the best player on the floor. Andrew Jones just happened to be Andrew Jones the other night, who is playing out of his mind. And I'm so happy to see that guy healthy and playing well. And because there's so many important, we can any given show, we could sit here and talk about who the most important player is at that given time on the team. and it just changes week to week. And I think that's such a strong argument for why this team will be successful come March.
Yeah, and they still haven't played a perfect game.
Still, yeah.
We're still talking, and I'm I'm kind of curious, like at what point in the season are we going to get together on this show and go, Texas played a perfect game? And when they do, kind of where is that in the season, in what situation? Because I mean, I'm not saying that to like bash this team. Like I'm saying it as like it's what's encouraging.
Yes.
We're talking about a top 4 team in the country. Their only loss was to Villanova, another one of the best teams in the country. They they won by 25 in Kansas, and we're still talking about them not having played a perfect game. And that's to me exciting because, as you mentioned, like this Big 12 slate, there's going to be times where they're going to have to play a perfect game. And if that waits until March, that works for me. If that means like that it comes all together there in the tournament, let's go. But yeah, the mentality of this team's encouraging, and it's a big test, big road test this weekend against West Virginia.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and there will be losses in this Big 12 schedule. It's going to happen. The grind of this conference schedule, I think, because we haven't. I just think they're going to take a couple of losses. I think that's very realistic to say that there will be a few 2 or 3 losses in here where you're like, oh man, okay, maybe 2, whatever it is. But it's like, how will they rebound from it? Did it look like they gave up? Was it something that's fixable?
Right.
You know, like those are all things that in a loss, those are things that you look for out of a team like this. That is, am I fully on board on the hype train with this team at this point? Yes. Do I still feel a little bit hesitant to, as a Texas basketball fan, to not expect some sort of breakdown later on in the season? I don't know. That's hard to say for me because I really want to, and our eyes tell us, Kerry, that this isn't the type of team that will let us down and will quit. So it's, I'm really getting to the point now where I'm waiting for failure. That's the last thing I want, the last box I want to check off, because of course I want them to win every game, but it's almost like I want to see how they respond after a loss. I want to see how they come back from that.
Well, and that's the whole thing. You know, we talk about
Aside
the Villanova
from
loss.
Villanova, right?
Yeah. But it's like, that's one of those ones where you can really come out of that and just say like, like it's Villanova.
Yep.
And they were right there in a position to win it. But where it's going to come is one of these losses against a team that, you know, you maybe should beat. And, you know, you go on the road to Kansas State or something, or one of these teams that like you should beat. And then does one loss turn into 2? And you start to see some sloppiness. You start to see that, to me, is going to be the big, like you said, it's how are they going to handle maybe like, I don't want to call it like extended adversity, but maybe where they put together a 2 or 3 game stretch where they're not really playing all that well. And, you know, they lose 2 or 3. Is that going to be something that craters the season and craters confidence? And this is a team that just kind of stumbles their way into the tournament and is out in the first weekend. That it's in this kind of this conference schedule there's going to be moments like that, but
I think there's so many leaders on this team. I think
I
there's
agree.
so many guys that won't let that happen. But I mean, it's weird because, yeah, of course, do you want your team to go undefeated or go all the way through March and only lose 1 game to Villanova and all that? Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course you want, but it's almost like we're expecting a hiccup here because the Big 12 is so tough. I don't think it'll be today. Mike doesn't seem to think it'll be today. Although I think Mike thinks the game will be a little bit lower scoring than is now expected. I think Texas will handle their business today, but it's just, who knows when it's going to happen? You know, they're going to go cold. They're going to go cold from 3 one night. They're not going to get, as you know, those little offensive rebound bunnies that they get a lot, might bounce out in and out of the rim, a few more times than not. And the bounces might not go their way. So it's going to be a good matchup for them. Another good test on the road, and we'll see what happens. But man, it's hard not to just be 100% all in on this basketball team right now.
No, absolutely. And they look legit. They passed the eye test. I think I feel like this, we've been talking about this. Like, I feel like this is a team that finally gets out of the first weekend of the tournament. Like that we can, really start talking about a team that's not just getting to the Sweet 16, but can go further and further and really make a run. So we'll see. It's a long season. It's a tough league, but I mean, if anything, they're going to come out of this conference slate battle tested and ready to go. So,
well, and
yeah.
hopefully Shaka can. I'm not advocating necessarily for one and done, to become a one and done Kentucky Mill here, but it's like hopefully that there'll be another Greg Brown type, that sees the type of success, because this next year it's going to be a different looking team next year. So, let's get through
different
this
looking
year.
arena too, moving into a new building, the whole thing, all the excitement that comes with that, like especially.
So
yeah.
We'll see how Shaka can translate that into to continue to build this roster the way that he wants. But yeah, man, we'll see how the Horns do, and it's a lot of excitement, a lot to be excited about.
Well, let's switch over to some football. NFL playoffs start this weekend. We'll keep it kind of brief on these. We won't get analyze each game by game, but Ben, you want to put some picks on this? You want to go ahead and make some postseason predictions? What do you got?
Yeah, we can do that. Well, I mean, let's pull up these games. What do you have the games pulled up?
I did earlier. I know the first game today is going to be is the Buffalo Indianapolis game. Yeah.
I'm kind of shocked, to be honest, that's the early Saturday game, because in my mind that's going to be one of the better games all weekend long. Those are two really good football teams. Buffalo is playing as well as anybody. If they had another bounce go their way, they'd be on a 10-game winning streak right now going into the playoffs. They're one of the hottest teams in the league. They've got a quarterback in Josh Allen, who in the preseason, it was a guy that I've been excited about to watch his development, and he's becoming the franchise quarterback that Buffalo thought he would be.
Yeah.
And the team around him is also not too bad either. So, but it's also hard. You look at the Colts 11-5. They know how to win games. It's a well-coached team, but it's hard for me not to go with Buffalo there in that first matchup.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me not to think Buffalo is going to be somebody that's going to be around for at least a couple more weekends in this tournament.
Yep. I'm going Buffalo in the first game today. We've got the second game today is a fascinating one to me. Is going to be the Rams at the Seahawks. And I just think the Rams being beat up the way they are going to Seattle, I think the Seahawks take care of that. Although the Seahawks have been a little up and down. It's the offense was lights out early on. Now the defense has been what's been saving them. And I don't know what to expect, but I guess.
Yeah, outside of Russell Wilson, there's nothing really that's drawing me to watch that game. We don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be yet for the Rams today. Goff just had thumb surgery in late December, and he's not, like the Goff contract, the Carson Wentz contracts, like they sign these guys, and they're not the real, they're the jabronis. At least it looks like it at this point. So, no, I'll go Seahawks there too. It's hard for me to go against Seattle there. What do you got? And then the next one we have. Oh, who did you say? Did you take Seattle on that?
I got Seattle in that game. Yeah.
And then the Sunday night game, or Saturday night game, I should say, will be Tampa at Washington football team. Who do you got here? Now, there is a little bit of precedence here, Kerry. When a division, were you going to hit on this?
I'm going exactly where you're going here. Like go
ahead.
The division champ with a losing record bit. Everybody remembers like when I think it was Seattle was 7-9 and hosted the Saints, and that was the Marshawn Lynch like beast mode game.
Yeah.
I'll say I think Tampa's going to win, but would it surprise me if Washington wins tonight? It wouldn't.
I mean, that's Tom Brady on the other side of the football we're talking about there, man. I mean, but it's just, there's always something weird about these games, because the higher the team with the better record is, they have the wild card, so they have to go on the road and play. And
Right.
Washington, that's like the worst. It's the worst stadium. It's one of the worst fields. It's just it's a dump. That place is a dump. Nobody wants to go there to play. It's almost like that's the advantage that you have, is that your own home stadium sucks so badly that people are just, oh God, we gotta go. Oh. But no, I'm gonna pick Tampa there. But
I think it's gonna be closer. I think it's gonna be a closer game. That Washington defense is pretty damn good. I think if Alex Smith is a go, we could have a game. I think if Alex Smith is out or isn't, I mean, he's not fully healthy. He hasn't been for a long time, but like if he plays, I think Washington's got a shot. If he doesn't play, I
and Alex Smith calf injury is a little bit different than anybody else because he was off his legs for 2 damn years or whatever. But
right.
It's gonna be 32 degrees at kickoff in that game, so should be clear skies, but it's gonna be a cold one. So we'll see how it goes. But what do we got on Sunday?
So tomorrow the early game is Baltimore at Tennessee.
Which again, to me, that's the game of the day. Like, I don't know why the best games of the day, in my opinion, are both the first games that are being played on these nights. Usually you save those for the primetime slots. I'm excited about this game, Kerry.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. This is Baltimore's kind of come back alive here. Like they went through that lull mid-season where it looked like they had kind of been figured out. And now they look pretty strong again. Like, I think Tennessee's defense this year is not what it was last season. I think I'm gonna go Baltimore here. I think, I don't know. I'm sure they've got a bit of a chip on their shoulder after what happened last postseason, and I just think they're kind of hitting their stride again at the right time. And I'm gonna go Ravens.
I'm gonna disagree with you here. I'm gonna go with the Titans. I think they have their number at this point. I think it's a thing where I think Derrick Henry, I know Baltimore's got a good defense. I think Derrick Henry is just on another level right now. I don't think there's another running back obviously, 2,000 yards. And there's not a better running back in football right now, in my opinion, than Derrick Henry. This is the type This is the time of year where running backs like him earn their money. And I think Tennessee rides Derrick Henry to a victory today against Baltimore. Next one, middle of the day game. We got the Bears at the Saints. I don't really think that there's much to discuss here.
It's an intriguing game, though. Like, I think the Saints. I mean, I'm picking the Saints, but if the Bears can score points the way that they kind of have been this last quarter of the season, it could get interesting. But in New Orleans, yeah, I'm going Saints. It's Breeze versus Trubisky. Who are you going to go with there?
Yeah, exactly. And Kamara was on the COVID list, but by all accounts, he'll be ready to play.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think there's too many weapons. Pardon me, too many weapons that New Orleans has, and not enough for Chicago. Which, hey, they found a way to make the playoffs this year. Which I thought, that's one of those things where you're like, man, that's for Chicago. Do they have it all lined up right now? No, but to find a way to be able to make it into the playoffs this year when you didn't have you don't feel like you really played your best football for most of the season. That's something to look at next year for that franchise, to see if they can use this as a launching point, sort of to become a more consistent team. And their quarterback play is obviously going to determine a lot of that. So no, I don't think there's much to see here. It could turn into a decent matchup, but I think New Orleans wins handily. That's a big number. I think that they're favored by, but I think that I think the Saints handle business.
And then the primetime game tomorrow night, Cleveland Browns at Pittsburgh Steelers. Cleveland's a mess right now.
Yeah.
The COVID problems. Stefanski's not going to be on the sidelines, I don't think. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh wins this one going away.
I don't think this is why I don't understand this is the Sunday night game.
Yep.
Like, this is not. Cleveland struggled to beat Pittsburgh last week when Pittsburgh held out guys. It was in Cleveland. It was like there were so many things lined up, and Cleveland still had a difficult time putting Pittsburgh away. Stefanski's not going to be able to coach. Like, who's calling plays? I mean, it's going to be a little bit out of rhythm. And this is probably the type of game where now it's like Cleveland just shows out and
street ball, just
because well, in Pittsburgh at one time weren't they were 11-0, right? So I mean, it's not like they're playing their best football right now, but Cleveland is in such a state of shambles, in my opinion, that I just don't think. I don't trust Cleveland for anything, so I'll take Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, I'll take a well coached and prepared defense for Pittsburgh over what's going to be a kind of sloppy Cleveland offense, I think.
Is tonight Baker Mayfield's opportunity?
Tomorrow night.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Is tomorrow night Baker Mayfield's opportunity, even if he plays in a loss, if he plays well, to sort of get a little bit of that monkey off of his back in terms of how people view him as a quarterback? Because it's intriguing to me because they finally made the playoffs. They're playing well. He's playing pretty well. Is this an opportunity for him to sort of take the next step as a quarterback in this league? Or is he just not – is he not somebody that is has any higher of a ceiling than what we've seen, in your opinion?
Oh, man, that's a good question, because I feel like if Cleveland wins this game tomorrow, it's not because of Baker Mayfield.
That's fair.
Like, I think it's going to be, on the offensive side, a big game from Nick Chubb. Like, because that's been their thing this season, like, is their run game. It's if they can get the run game going and they play good enough defense to slow down, the Pittsburgh offense, then I think that's how they win. I think if it's something where Mayfield's putting up huge numbers, it's because they're chasing a game. And he might have one of those just incredible nights. But if they lose, then it doesn't matter. And that's kind of where it's an interesting question, because he could do all those things and he can basically put on the type of show. We talk about how this might be like a street ball kind of game. We might see the Oklahoma Baker Mayfield that's improvising, that's just, all over the place and making things happen. But I feel like that's not a winning recipe. And he could put on one of those kinds of performances and people are impressed with it. But hey, at the end of the day, maybe you still lost. So I think, but that's the thing. I think for them to win, it's got to be a heavy run game, like slugfest with Pittsburgh. And that doesn't really go well towards perhaps his perception as entering that next tier of quarterbacks, if that makes sense.
Well, Pittsburgh's favored by 6 right now, and the over-under is 47.5. It's going to be that type of I think this is going to be just a bruiser, the type of a game that we expect from these two teams, these two AFC division rivals to have. I think it's just going to – I don't understand why this is the Sunday night game. Like,
well,
that's all right. We're going to watch it.
I don't know. Maybe they know more than we think, because, I mean, I don't know.
They know more than us?
I don't know. I mean –
what?
I don't think so, but –
what? I don't know, man. It's not the matchup that I want to sit down tomorrow night and end my weekend with. But I'm going to watch it, and it'll probably end up being a great game because it won't be too high scoring. It's probably going to end up like a 24-21 type of a game for whoever is going to win this. It's not. I think we're going to see some points scored on both sides. I'll watch it, of course, but.
And there's the rivalry aspect, some bad blood between those two, and I think, and that's where I think it's going to be interesting. It's I still think Pittsburgh wins, but
yeah, I did too.
Well, I mean, what do you think? You want to discuss, we want to kind of leave those there and then discuss next week's games, or do you want to kind of make a call on who you see going all the way here? Or
I got a Super Bowl prediction. I'm gonna go Green Bay and Buffalo. Those are my.
oh man,
Oh no, is that where you
God,
were too?
yes,
Oh
damn.
man. All right. Well, never mind then. I'll take.
Well, I've
No,
got to be fair, I've got Buffalo winning it.
I don't.
I've got Buffalo winning the Super Bowl this year,
I,
going out on
I
a
don't.
ledge.
I got Green Bay. I got Green Bay winning this year, but I mean, this is going to be. There are some football teams in this playoffs where sometimes you look and it's like, I don't care about any of these teams or these stories or this development or this there that. And I think the NFL, in spite of all of they've had to create better stories. They've had to, because with fans not being able to be there, with just the environment being different, they've had to approach this a different way. So how do you make it? I just think the NFL has done a really nice job this year in terms of, not that they needed help because it's the NFL, but in terms of making me interested in a year when the Houston Texans, it's this is the franchise that I've supported since 2002, since their inception, and now I'm sort of like, why am I wasting my time here? So in a year where that happened, the NFL still has me super interested in these playoffs, even as just a casual observer, and I think that that's a credit to them. But no, man, I think it's going to be a good series. I think we're going to see some teams. I don't think there's going to be as much chalk even as you and I predicted today, but just the way that to look at some of these games, it's just I don't. It's going to be a good one, man. And yeah. So what's your driving force there behind that Buffalo pick?
I just think they're hot. I think that the way that they've been playing, I think for me, it comes down to Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC. And Buffalo's confident. This is just, I don't know. I could see that they're playing with a ton of confidence right now, and they're not going to go into Kansas City and be afraid. And it could be cold. It could be nasty weather. Well, it's that way in Buffalo too. It's not going to catch them off guard. And I don't know. They just, with the way that they've been playing.
It's kind of crazy that we're sitting here and neither of us picked Kansas City or Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore makes it out of the first weekend. But I don't know, man. It's interesting that neither of us picked the Chiefs. I just think that's the sort of, I don't know. It's like, it's hard for me to even, I don't know, man. It's just, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun to watch these playoffs develop, and hopefully we do get some good football. We are able to enjoy some of these rivalry sort of matchups that have, whether they're natural rivalries or just sort of these rivalries that have developed over the last few years. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I don't know. I don't even think Baltimore makes it out of the first weekend. I don't know, but it's weird to talk about that because last year, you got, those are the two. It's Lamar Jackson. It's Kermit the Frog. I mean, I'm sorry, the guy's the best player in the league. Show Mahomes some more respect than that. But anyways, it's like, I don't know, man. There's just a lot of the talent in this league right now. I guess what I was getting at earlier is that the NFL has done an even better job of putting a spotlight on how many talented, outgoing, fan-friendly, interesting players.
Yeah.
This year, the league is loaded with them, and social media helps, like, because the NFL doesn't have to create all these stars on their own. Some of these guys are able to do all this stuff off on the side because there's so many more options and there's so many more outlets and so many more ways to get eyes on them. But there's a lot more quote unquote stars these days, and it makes for a better league.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's gonna be a really entertaining postseason. So it starts today. It's gonna be fun. And of course, in typical fashion, my Super Bowl pick will probably lose the noon game today to the Indianapolis Colts, which wouldn't surprise me, but
but man, there was a reason why we're both that confident in Buffalo at this point. It's not because they're not playing good and because they're not capable of running the table here through this stretch. But it's just the Colts are a good team.
Yeah,
they're a well-coached team, and that's why I guess I get why Tampa Bay is in the prime time slot, because it's Tommy Brady, But in terms of what the best game will be today, I think it's going to be the noon game. So if you guys are watching this show earlier in the day and you're going to pick a game to watch, I would suggest watching that noon game today.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be a fun one. Well, man, let's wrap this thing up. Jay, I know you wanted to hit something real quick on the Astros. We've got a little off-season activity if you want to.
Oh, yeah. So Astros signed a pitcher, Ryan. If you're named Ryan, if you're named after like an early 90s all-star second baseman, the chances of you playing baseball in your life is probably pretty high. So they signed Ryan Stanek, a pitcher who's filled many different roles on the clubs that he's played in recently, but he had an off year last year. But Kerry, you sort of described him as an innings eater, a guy that can come in and work through some stuff if you need him to. And you were talking about sort of some of the roles that he has filled at some of his other clubs.
Yeah, from what I read about him, I know he was with Miami last year, but when he was with Tampa Bay, which is where, there's a link now with James Click, the general manager for the Astros, and his Tampa connections. But yeah, he was, from what I read, he was used as kind of an opener with Tampa, who's kind of made that a thing over the last couple of years. And so apparently the guy's got some good heat, and a guy that can just come out. I don't know if the Astros are going to use this kind of opener approach. I doubt it, given kind of what they've been doing. But this is a guy that you can come in later in the games, give you an inning or two of some nice, high speed stuff. And yeah, we'll see. It's a depth pickup. It's a 1-year deal. This is we'll see what
it's the type of signing
contributes.
that you need to fill out a roster, and a guy with the experience that he has and had a little bit of success in Tampa in that opener role. But when the Astros sign a pitcher, you pay attention, because there's something that they see.
Right.
The pitching development has not been something that's been lacking in this organization. So when Houston signs a pitcher, it's like, well, they must see something in him that they think they can either develop or has these certain whatever type of analytics they're using to determine these. So it's like, okay, let's see if they can put a little bit of shine on this. I was you know what I was going to say. Let's see if we can get this guy headed in the right direction, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's just a little Astros news on the second week of January.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have plenty more over the coming weeks as free agents and all that stuff start to shake out. But
hot stove, baby, hot stove.
That's right, fired up.
Yeah.
Well, man, we'll leave it there. Good show. Let's do it again next week. Enjoy the playoffs this weekend, and let's do it again.
Yeah, man, have a good week. Good show as always. Thanks for listening, everybody. Y'all take care.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
ATX representing Fatal, baby. Only no 6 on a Saturday.